Hello everyone. My name is Brittany Lewis and I am a professional graphic designer and illustrator, and Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and this Sunday of course is no exception to that. I'm super excited to be here. Sundays seem to be a good day to stream because it's always on the heels of like some activity that I am participating in. So this Sunday of course is the same, but before we get into today's live stream, please do me a huge favor if you like these types of live streams, if you like to see live creation processes, or if you just kind of like art streams in general, do me a favor and hit the like button. And if you have not yet subscribed, I have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, so I would love to have you a part of this channel. And liking also helps push the video out to more people so that more people can join us in. Hey Draw Sketchbook, look, I'm so happy to see you. I was actually just thinking about you not long ago, so I'm happy to see you. So yeah, if you guys would like to do me that favor, hey TN lady, come on everybody. Come on through chat. I hope y'all can hear me okay. I'm in a different browser today, so I'm not real sure if the audio is working or anything like that, but hopefully y'all can hear me okay. Just in case you have, please do me a huge favor, hit that like button and also subscribe if you have not already. Also, if you would like to purchase artwork from me, if you will have a project that you think I'd be a great fit for, there are going to be some links down in the description for how you can hire me or purchase artwork in my shop. So today's Sunday comes behind an actual comic book convention that I did. Now I have not done a comic book convention since 2024, so it's been a minute since I've done one. I know last year I was applying not just to conventions but also to like different markets and things like that, and for whatever reason I just kept getting rejected. And so this year I applied to one at the library, the Memphis libraries here in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's just on a whim, and they accepted me to be a part of it, which I was super happy about because I've been at the library a lot this year through my photography club and different like activities and things like that I've been participating in there. And so we had the con yesterday, and so this is one of those times where I wasn't necessarily how should I say, I didn't have any expectations for it, right? As a matter of fact, I didn't advertise it because I kept forgetting about it. It was like I kept forgetting about it, and it may be just because last year I did not do any events. This year this is the second event that I participated in so far, and so for whatever reason it just kept slipping my mind. They would think they sent out a couple of emails to make sure that we were still coming and let us know the rules and the setup times and all of that. And so when yesterday came, it kind of snuck up on me. It worked to my benefit because one, I didn't need to print anything new. I already had all the inventory I needed. Two, there was no booth rent for this particular event, which was nice. All we had to do was donate 10% of our earnings. Of course, there was an honor system there. You need to be truthful, of course. But we had to donate 10% of our earnings, and the rest of it was just a good time. So again, I woke up, I didn't have no expectations. I didn't usually when I'm going into an event, I'm already calculating how much I need to make back because of booth rent or travel or printing or whatever the case is. And this just was one that I did not have to worry so much about that, and I had a ball. A time was had. So I know I met some of you guys there at the convention yesterday, so if you're coming in from that event, I truly appreciate you guys for stopping by my table. It was a great time, and I think also the time that I had was probably a large part of that was probably because I had no expectations. I was just in there to have a good time, right? I was in there to people watch. If it got slow, I had like my sketchbook or anything like that, but it was nonstop, really great, very nice environment. It was a very small event, but I think that they did a wonderful job putting it together. I think one of the voice actors from, who was he from? Delicious in Dungeon, and he also was one of the characters on K-pop Demon Slayer, was there to speak to a lot of the kids. They had like a story time. They had Lego competitions and art competitions for the younger people there. And so I met a lot of really nice people. I met a lot of really cool people, heard a lot of great stories, of course, saw a lot of good cosplay, and so it was a great time. I was like, come on, good time. I have been so preoccupied over the last few weeks with commissions and and also sort of balancing other art projects and things like that I have not spent a whole lot of time thinking about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but I have been putting in a little bit of time, even if it's just 30 to 50 minutes or an hour or so on working on it. So this past Wednesday in our Bring Your Own Project Live, we worked on this card, which is the Five of Swords. So for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, this is the Five of Swords from our project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now this is the third 5 card that I have completed, and we have one more to do before we move on to the 6s. On Wednesday, I did work a lot on some of the background characters, and I kind of left off with the middle ground background character, and so far it's coming together really nicely. Now anytime I am going into an illustration, whether it is digital or traditional, in the beginning I'm not necessarily going for perfection. I just want to get the information in, I just want to get the colors in, then I can come back and clean it up and do all of that. Hey Black Zetsu, come on now. Come on, chat. I just go through and clean it up and make sure that, or I can go through and clean it up later, right? So I go in and add like baseline shadows and highlights and things like that, and then I come through and I add details. So a great example of what that would look like is in the boots of the character in the foreground. So if I zoom in here, and I'll zoom in quite a bit because it is of course a lot bigger for me sitting in front of it than it might be for you guys who might be watching like on your phone, for example. So these boots, if I turn off my sketch, are pretty rudimentary. There's some indication of straps. There's some indication of shadow and light and things like that. But they are not fully like rendered out or fleshed out or anything like that. I have it that way so that I can slowly build upon the illustration that I am creating. And then again, I can add details and like make things more final and polished as time progresses and as time moves on. And if I get stuck, which I did on these boots, right? So if I get stuck, then I can just move on to another aspect of the illustration and I can just go from there, right? So I like to keep my sketch on at a relatively low opacity rate, meaning you can see it, but it's not super dark. It's not taking up the whole of the illustration. It's not very distracting or anything like that. It's just enough information for me to see where the lines that I drew in my sketch are, right? And from there, what I'll do is begin to add details to the aspects of the paintings or the illustrations, and then we'll move forward. And I'm following the lighting guide of my reference that I created on my posemy.art, which is a website that I just randomly came across to see if I could find a 3D poser for this particular card. Now generally I will use Clip Studio's 3D models. So for those of you who are just joining us, I am working in Clip Studio Paint, specifically version 1. I have been toying with the idea of upgrading versions because I am curious to know whether or not the lighting improves, and maybe I could do some research into that before I make the decision to upgrade to version 2, 3, and 4, because I actually have to do it in sequence before I can get the newer version. But right now version 1 seems to be serving a great purpose for me. The 3D models for the most part do a fairly good job of allowing me to articulate parts of the body, and then of course my own sort of know-how where how the body flows, and also being able to move and articulate my own body kind of helps me make the characters feel a little bit more realistic. So we're going to pick back up with this middle ground character, and then we're going to proceed. So I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Again, it's been this year, man. It's been a whole lot better than years past, I will say that much, and I'm super grateful for it. So at the convention, again, I met a lot of different people, right? So typically when I do the regular convention circuit here in Memphis, you see a lot of the same people, you see a lot of the same vendors, you see a lot of the same guest members, and so you sort of build this rapport between yourself and your audience, as well as other creators, as you are doing a lot of the local events, right? The difference between those comic conventions and the one at the library was that I was meeting people that I had never seen before, right? Of course, some of the vendors were the same. I did recognize a few of the vendors. Some of them I had not. And some of them very selectively only work with the library as they do the comic book conventions. So the audience was quite different. And in that, what I found was that a lot of people were very much drawn to the tarot art, which was nice, right? Because again, I didn't go in and purchase any new inventory because I just kept forgetting that the convention was coming up. So I didn't purchase anything new. I didn't create anything new. I just kind of used what I had, and I had quite a bit. to sell and to use and to sort of promote, especially in the line of this particular project. And so surprisingly to me, and maybe because it is connecting to the library, a lot of people were drawn to this project. Whereas when I do the Memphis Comic Expo, for example, or I do some of the others comic specific or like pop culture specific events, they're, you know, much more obviously looking for the superheroes and, you know, the Star Trek and the Star Wars and all that. Not to say that I did not have that in this event, of course I did, but people were much more open and interested in learning more about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So again, if you're joining me here from meeting me there, I really appreciate it. So one thing I always do when I go to these those types of events, any kind of local event, is I try to see and talk to new artists, young artists. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to meet and communicate with lots and lots of young artists. And so what that does for me is it sort of challenges me to think about things that I can share to help move those people forward, right? Or not just young artists, but just artists, people who are getting into digital art, specifically selling your art, creating prints and all of that. So one of the things that I came to mind was the fact that you guys don't really get to see what I see, right? You get to see the screen. So right now, as I'm sort of drawing or adding color to the character in the background, you guys can see what I am doing on the screen, but you guys don't know what the screen looks like, right? And I remember having the question as to whether or not I'm using a stylus. So one of these days, very soon, I'm adding this to my video list, right? I'm going to walk you guys through some of the tools, some of the things that you can get as you move into doing digital artwork. So for instance, I draw on a desktop on a Huion pen display, right? But having a pen display is not necessary to be able to create digital art. We see a lot of people who are very much drawn to iPads, and if you're anti-iPad, you don't have to have an iPad, right? So there are lots of different options, lots of different things that you can buy as you sort of grow in the digital art field, and of course lots of different tutorials based on the program that you use. But generally speaking, when you're getting into digital art, there are two things that you have to consider: what you're going to be drawing on and what program you're going to be drawing in, right? So whether you're going to be doing an iPad or a desktop / laptop, if you're going to be doing a pen display or a graphics tablet, those are your options in terms of what you're going to be drawing on. When it comes to programs for drawing in them, for instance, I am working again in Clip Studio Paint. There are so many options out there, man. It just kind of depends upon what it is that you're after. Most of them model Photoshop because that's where a lot of us all started. We all started with Photoshop, so a lot of the interfaces are going to mirror Photoshop. The downside of Adobe Photoshop, of course, is the subscription. So, and it's expensive and it's difficult to get out of, right? So it's expensive and it's difficult to get out of. But what I will say is that when I started and there weren't a lot of options other than Photoshop, now you have lots and lots of options. So for instance, if you are working with an iPad, you have Procreate, which is extremely popular, right? Lots and lots of artists gravitate towards Procreate. It has the ability to create art that is painterly, art that is very graphic. It does not do vector graphics, and so we'll kind of explore what that means versus raster. But in a nutshell, a vector is made up of polygons, made up of shapes that can be expanded indefinitely, no matter how big or small you make it. It never sort of loses its form as you sort of shrink and expand the size of your vector images. Raster, on the other hand, which is what we're working in now, we're working on a raster image, cannot do that, right? It can only sort of be expanded and shrunk within a certain parameters. So you have to set your files up with that in mind. So Procreate does a great job with raster art, not necessarily with vector that I know of. Otherwise, you could do Clip Studio, but the thing about Clip Studio on iPad is that it is a subscription. Now, if you move to a laptop or a desktop, you have options like Clip Studio Paint where you can just buy it right out, which is what I did. You can also use GIMP. You can use Corel Painter. There is all kinds, Krita. There's all kinds of different programs and things that you'll have at your disposal. Again, most of it works about the same. It's just a matter of getting used to the interfaces, learning sort of how to do what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then going from there. You'll find brushes all over the place. You'll find lots and lots of brush options. You'll find lots of people, depending on the program, showing you sort of how to use the program. And once you kind of get accustomed to one, it's very easy to sort of transition into others. The only time I've had an issue with transitioning to a different program was going into Corel Painter. And I don't know who who the designer of Corel Painter is, but my goodness, it is one of the most to me, it was one of the most challenging outside of Procreate, ironically. Right now I can navigate Procreate all right, but Corel Painter is one of those where typically across programs, B is brush, right? E is eraser. You might have a different letter for like your pointer, your stylus. You might have a different letter for certain things, but for the most part, the obvious things are pretty obvious across the board. In Corel Painter, for whatever reason, if you hit E, it's not gonna give you the eraser, right? You know what I mean? If you hit B, it might be something else. And so getting used to and memorizing those shortcut keys, which helps with your workflow, it helps keep the time of creating down, where I'm not having to like sort through menus and things like that to find different elements in the program. That could be helpful, but if it's different then it takes a whole lot of time trying to figure it out and trying to memorize it and going through the motions like that. So Corel Painter is probably one of the only ones that I've had like a real hard time outside of Procreate, and I don't know what it is with me and Procreate but outside of that one, that I've had a little bit of a challenge sort of getting used to. But there are options, right? You don't have to pay a whole lot. You don't have to necessarily pay a subscription. That part is totally up to you and kind of dependent upon which program you go with. But again, there are lots and lots of options. There are lots of ways to get into digital art. The thing that I found most interesting yesterday, and it may just be because I have not been in the convention space since the rise of, I would say 24, you would see some AI stuff. You wouldn't see a whole lot of it at conventions then that I could think of. But I kept getting, within the first 30 minutes or so, I had quite a few people ask me whether or not I created it, or like if the word generated came up and I could feel my flesh crawl. I remember one guy was asking what my medium was, and so I was like, yeah, it's digital art, and some of it was done from India ink, and some of it was done from different mediums. I'm explaining the mediums, but when I said digital, the question was, oh, so it's just something you computer generated? And I'm like, absolutely not. Please don't do that. No sir, it's not. And so having to sort of explain the process, and I think that will also help when I do some of the behind the scenes footage, of just to kind of show you guys what my setup looks like. I think that would help. But just having to explain that, and the difference between that and a generated image was something, I don't know, it was a little bit unnerving. I guess it was something that caught me off guard, and I don't know why, because of course we see so much AI out in the wild on social media and all of that. But just to be asked about it, it threw me for a loop, man. I was like, I don't know whether I should be offended or show grace. Of course, I always show grace because people don't know what they don't know, and their point of reference for the average person for digital art is AI right now, right? So that is the only thing that I will say you may run into, especially if you have a certain style. But I think, again, showing the process, and we've talked about this quite a bit. Draw Sketchbook says, I like and use Procreate, but it has a lot of brushes. It can be overwhelming to have to pick what to use. I agree. I just use the same 5 brushes. Listen, that's all I use in Clip Studio. I narrow it down to 3 brushes. I use a chalk brush. I use this round brush right here. I'll show you. Uh-oh, wrong color. Let's see. I use this brush. Is it gonna show me? Nope. Oh, that's because I'm on smudge. But I use a flat round brush. This, right? I use a chalk brush here, and then I use a smudge brush. So my smudge is, I count this as a brush because it does sort of give me texture as I blend colors, but you don't have to go brush crazy. You surely do not. Make sure you simplify the process. I think for me, Procreate is I think it's because I'm used to working on the computer. That's what it is. I'm used to working on the computer with a keyboard and like hitting certain shortcuts to get certain things. And when I go to Procreate, I have no idea what anything is, right? I can get to the brushes and navigate those. I can navigate the layers. It's pretty clean and straightforward. But like the gestures and all that, child, I ain't got time for it. You know what I mean? I think what I do with Procreate really well, what I do really well in Procreate is sketch. Now I will pick up Procreate and sketch in a heartbeat. Matter of fact, I got my iPad right here. So I will actually sketch in Procreate, and then I will take that sketch and bring it into Clip Studio on my computer. So that's generally how I work within it. But I know it's super popular. And I remember when I first learned about Procreate, I want to say it was about 2018, and I was at the Black Speculative Art Movement event here in downtown Memphis. And I was talking to a guy who did digital art. He was looking at some of my work, which at the time I was working in Photoshop. So he's looking at my work. He was like, have you heard about Procreate? I was like, no, I hadn't heard about that. And he was like, yeah, you can get really good textures, like the pencil textures. And not gonna lie, I can. Like when I sketch, it does look like I did it with an actual like graphite pencil. So he wasn't lying. And I've seen some people get some really, really nice painterly looks and painterly effects. But to me, it's learning them shortcuts, man. It was like, I don't know. I have said that I will challenge myself at a certain point to actually do an illustration in Procreate. Because, I mean, the draw for me for it, and this is just one of the pros, is that I can pick this up and I can move around. I can take it. I can travel. When I go, like, get my oil changed, I have my iPad with me. I'll do some design work on it. That's, to me, the biggest draw for working with an iPad and working in Procreate is that it is so mobile, right? It is mobile, it's accessible. One of the things that I love about it is that it's inexpensive. So for people who are just wanting to dip their toes into digital art, it's very accessible to do. Whereas with Clip Studio, I think the full license was like over $100 or something like that. But for someone like myself who does it for a living, that was just par for the course. That was a great investment. But if you're not sure if you would like a program or like digital art, something like a Procreate is fantastic, right? And not to mention, I've seen some beautiful work come out of there. I've seen some awesome, very, very beautiful work. So I don't think you're even limited in what you can do, so long as you practice your skills and things like that. And Draw Sketchbook, your work is beautiful, right? I love seeing it improve and seeing the characters that you come up with and all of that. So I think that is a wonderful program. It's just me. I gotta like give myself time and grace to learn them shortcut keys, because child, I get to banging on that thing and I'm like, all I want to do is erase it. You have to tap your pencil and do all of that. And so I think that's what it is. I think I'm just kind of not spoiled, but stuck with, I'm used to what it is. I'm used to working on the computer. So one of these days I'll get into it. But I love being able to talk to artists who are like, starting their journey and starting to learn new skills. And at the conventions, I tend to run into a lot of those, right? And so for me, again, my official art journey, I would say, started at 16 when I first got my first black art teacher. And this was the first time I had met a black woman who was an artist. And so before then, I just drew, and I thought everybody drew, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think myself any more skilled than the next person. I just like to draw, and I would do it on like notebook paper. I would do it on, I didn't have sketchbooks or anything like that. Whatever kind of printer paper, whatever I could kind of get my hands on is what I would draw on. But it was sort of my pastime. I would read, I would draw. I thought we all drew. I knew we didn't all read, but I thought we all could draw, right? And so when I was 16, I had Mrs. Owens, who was my 11th grade art teacher. And she sort of nurtured the idea of me being an artist. Of course, it sort of went to the adjacent field in graphic design, because that's what I ended up studying in college. But she was just like, just seeing someone who looked like me, who was an artist, even in the capacity of being an art teacher. But she had shown us paintings that she did, and she knew exactly how to sort of nurture my skills and make me a better creator, and just sort of plant the idea in my mind that I could succeed as a creator, sort of push me forward. So anytime I'm at these events, the comic book conventions, just wherever I'm at, even in photography club and things like that, and I'm not photography is something I do just with no sort of thought or like seriousness to it at all. But even in those spaces, if I see someone who I feel like I have something, maybe I know something that they may not know, how to connect your lens, or in the comic book conventions, how to set up your files and all of that. To me, it is my way of doing what someone did for me and nurturing those creatives. And I don't care how old or young you are, right? To me, it is just a matter of you finding a creative outlet, and I love to talk about it. Right? I love to talk about it. I love to nurture people in that, because someone nurtured it in me. And so meeting again some of the artists, young and old, some of the artists who were experienced, some of them who were inexperienced, some of them who were figuring it out and trying to find their voice and all of that. To me, just again, being able to talk to them and encourage them and, you know, talk to you guys and encourage you guys, it's just my way of paying for it. And it feels good to do. And I just love seeing you guys grow and mature and succeed and do all of that, because I feel like if I'm surrounded by winners, you know, that's going to continue to motivate me to win as well. So just being creative in a space and in an era where it's so easy just to type in a sentence and generate something based on a description, right? Rather than learning a skill and learning how to put yourself in that skill and to put yourself in that artwork. To me, I feel like that is a superpower, just to continue to do that much, right? Because now it's so easy to just, again, type in a description and then you get something spit out. The thing that a lot of people who do that don't know or don't care about or maybe don't realize or any of that is that it takes artists like us in order for those things to exist, because they're scraping our art, unfortunately. And so that's where we are with it. So for you guys who are interested in it and still sort of moving forward and still sort of being creative, to me that makes my heart sing. You know, I ain't nobody special or nothing like that. I just love being able to see other people be expressive and creative and brave enough to continue to create in a time where it is so easy to be discouraged by, you know, the technology that we're exposed to and that the masses are exposed to, and having people come up to you and ask you if it's generated, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That kind of thing, just to be able to continue to show and talk about and share your processes, or not share your process, just to create, right? Just to be able to continue to create, to me, means a whole lot. And I'm happy to see you guys here and in the chat and or not in the chat and able to sort of continue on your path and create, because again, I feel like wholeheartedly that is going to be where a lot of people are going to shine, right? Being able to be the human behind the creativity. Being able to sort of express yourself however it comes, right? Whether you are doing it traditionally, whether you are an artist or a poet or spoken word or, you know, whatever your thing is, being able to do that and continue to do that despite sort of the odds, if you will, despite sort of the trends and sort of where everyone is, especially in the digital art space, right? Because that was so nerve-wracking for somebody to be like, oh, did you generate these? No. And the irony was, most of the art that I had, because again, I didn't print anything new, I didn't make anything new, most of it was at least, I don't know, 10 years old, some of that art. So the art that I took ranged from 2014, which was when I did my first convention. I still have stuff from there, right? All the way up to, I think the last new thing that I did was maybe, other than the tarot stuff, was maybe 2023. So a huge span of artwork and a huge variety of it. And yeah, I was like, no, you know, no, it's not that. I have I didn't have to go into the process of explaining. Yeah, you know, I have a desktop at my computer and I have a drawing tablet and I draw on it just like I do on paper. It's just a computer screen is what it looks like. And that's all, you know. So having that, but again, just pushing through even that, right? Pushing through that just to say, hey, I am still a human creative. I still express myself. And with digital art is really interesting because it is very misunderstood just to begin with, right? Unless you're sort of up on it, unless you've seen it done or sort of know someone who works through it, there's already the misconception that all I'm doing is clicking buttons, right? So that already comes with that specific perception of digital art. But again, being able to show you guys live in real time, me drawing lines and like getting them right or messing up where I just drew something, you know what I mean? Or like doing the process videos and things like that is going to be a superpower in more than one way. Not just to prove that I'm, of course, a human artist, but to also share that process with you guys who are learning digital art, to see that it is possible for you to do. All right, so Black Zetsu says, I think some of the people asking maybe giving a backhanded compliment. People really like AI, so I think they mean well. Yeah, I don't think they don't mean well. I really think it comes down to just not knowing, right? People don't know what they don't know. I think I don't know, man. It's a weird space. You know, again, I like to show grace to those types of people because people don't know what they don't know. And their frame of reference right now for digital images is AI. So you have to kind of have that at the front of your mind when you're getting those questions. But when they catch you off guard, man, No. No, man, it's not. So then you have to sort of bring yourself back into the present and say, okay, they probably don't know, right? So let's explain it. And so I have to explain again the process of how I do, and also plug the fact that I do these live. So I do these live streams and things like that, just to sort of give that education. But yeah, I think it really just comes down to people. The average person just doesn't know, right? So if I do digital art immediately, even before the AI was a thing, the common thing was, oh, you must just like push buttons, right? And then I remember seeing a wave of like creator videos where they would do the unmasking thing. So they would have the completed image, and then it would be blank or like a sketch, and then they would unmask it with like a brush stroke. That sort of takes away from the fact that they probably spent hours and hours and hours on that particular illustration, but unmasking it looks like, oh, okay, well, all she did was just swipe across the screen and there you have it. So I think a lot of it just kind of comes down to what the common frame of reference is now. But yeah, I was offended at first, and then when I came back to myself, I was like, oh, they just don't know. You know what I mean? And then that's where you have to explain it. Also, a lot of the work that I had was signed and dated, thank goodness, for like well before 2020. When did it get big? Maybe 2023, 2024, something like that. So yeah, it's really in a weird space. But again, that was the first time that I had been in a public setting since like the blast off of it. Now AI to me, and it just might be my own sort of trained eye for it, has a specific look, and there are anomalies in the artwork. For instance, it doesn't generally handle text well within like an illustration space, so it's easy to see that. There are always going to be like weird what I call anomalies, but there'll be like blobs and things like that that really don't belong to the illustration. And the more you see it, the more you're sort of accustomed to it. It all kind of looks the same. So for someone who has an artistic background, it's easy for me to point out. But for the average person, they probably don't know. You know what I mean? They probably don't know, and they ain't even thinking about it. All they see is the artwork, and then also not knowing whether or not I am the artist. And because there was so much variety of art, again spanning from 2014 to 2023, so it's almost 10 years worth of art across all kinds of different subject matters and different styles and things like that. I think the surprise was, did you really create all of this? Right? And it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a while. So yeah, that was something I don't think, again, once I became present in the moment and it sort of took the ego out of it, I really think it kind of just came down to like general sort of ignorance on the subject and all of that. But yeah, it was an experience. That was definitely something that was very new. But overall, just those couple of instances definitely did not put a damper on the day, because again, it was such a beautiful day. And I had no expectation. I was like, I don't know what I'm going in for. And that's been the case with a couple of the things that we've done this year. Just don't know what's going to happen, and just sort of going into it for the fun of it, right? So it's been a month or so now, I did the painting for the Withers Gallery Museum for the art exhibition that was commemorating Fort Pillow. Now when I was approached to do that, you know what I mean, first of all, so many things lined up for that to happen. Secondly, what for me was the draw was that I was like, okay, let me just do it. I don't have no expectation, you know what I mean? I don't know what's going to come of it. I just kind of want to do it, to challenge myself to do it. I only had 2 weeks to do it, so I did it for the plot. Right? And so this convention for me was sort of doing it for the plot. And I've been finding different things like that where I kind of wake up and I try to take my nerves out of it, try to take my ego out of the situations, and just do the things to enjoy them, just to be there, just to kind of see what will happen, and just to kind of have fun with it, or try my best to have fun with it despite whatever might be going on around it. And I find that doing that lately has been a whole lot. It's just kind of changed my perception on a whole bunch of things. And yesterday, for me, that was probably one of the most successful in terms of monetary return on a convention that I've had. This is probably the second best one that I've had since I've been doing conventions, and it's been since 2014. So again, just kind of going in with like, and it may be because I didn't have to like pay anything up front, so I didn't have, there was no pressure. No pressure to sell anything that I've printed. I didn't have any money to make back. It was stuff that I already had in stock. and it fit the event, especially fit the library. Again, I met a lot of people who were much more interested in the tarot than I thought they would be. I met one lady who was so sweet. She said that she worked at a metaphysical shop, I believe in the Midwest, and that she was having a difficult time finding her people. You know what I mean? Because she was had a huge tarot collection, because we live in the Bible Belt. And so, but to the contrary of that, again, so many people were very, very drawn to those particular images and asking if they were a part of a series, and, you know, asking more questions about it. And like the tower, for instance, was it connected to the zoo? And, you know, all kinds of different things. And so having those experiences, I feel like were really great. So I say all that to say, if you guys are interested in selling artwork or just don't know where to go, look at some of your local events, right? Try to find something locally. Try to keep the cost down as much as possible. It can become very expensive, especially if you're traveling out, because not only are you paying your booth rent, which is a thing, right? Generally, you're paying your booth rent. You have to pay for your travel expenses. You have to pay to eat, on top of paying for all of your inventory and not really knowing what the outcome is going to be. So if you start locally and start in a space where you don't spend out a whole bunch, right? Try to keep your cost levels as far down as you possibly can. See how you like it, and then use each experience to learn something new, learn how to be better. For me, it was meeting younger artists and learning how I can show up for them and sort of show the behind the scenes, and how you export and prepare your files for print, and where you go to print, right? How you do your sizes and determine your resolutions, and sort of working that aspect out. For me, that was the biggest sort of learning experience for me. So it's like, okay, cool. So the next few videos after the two that I have to edit, maybe we'll focus on some behind the scenes. I know I did a video some while ago. I think the stream wasn't working, and that Sunday I needed to do the flats for, I believe it was the 3 of Wands. So this was sometime last year, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just record a video showing the process of doing the flats and why it's important. So I'm doing more of that so that you guys can sort of implement whatever you learn from me into your artwork, and then maybe teach me something. Right? So maybe teach me something as well, because I'm always sort of open and interested in learning new techniques and sort of how to improve my own workflow. Because although I've been doing this professionally, I'm still a student, right? I'm still very much a student. I'm still learning how to improve as an artist and to become better as an artist. And I would say my art improves, you know, pretty incrementally. So I can look at some of my older work from 10 years ago, especially the older digital work, and I can look at the digital work that I've done recently, and I can see a confidence shift, right? I can see that my confidence in it has grown. I can see myself taking more risks and being less timid about it and less perfect about it, and putting more of myself into those illustrations. And so that is something I would love to share with you. So for instance, now, earlier I talked to you guys about the 3D models and using, I think it was Pose My Art or something like that. Again, that was real random. Found that website extremely random, but it did a great job. I was just kind of playing with it. I wasn't really sure if I could get the pose that I needed for it, and I'll show you again what that looks like. So down in the reference panel, I'll show you. I just took a screenshot of the whole thing. I didn't feel like signing up for no account or nothing like that. I just posed, got it to where I wanted it to be. Maybe did a couple of versions with small tweaks to it, and then I took a screenshot of it, and then I moved on. So this is kind of what the interface looks like. I'll show you here. This was exactly the website I was on, right? So I was on Pose My Art. It has the option to save your poses and all of that. But what I liked about this, and again, one of the caveats that I have with Clip Studio's 3D models, is that the lighting, I cannot light the entire scene, right? I have to light each individual aspect of it differently and try to match them up. So when I was planning for the painting that I did at Fort Pillow, which involved 4 characters, I did 2 references. One was a reference that I put together from my husband and my son, who modeled the positions of the people for me, right? My son held a flashlight, which kind of gave me a little bit of an indication of where the light should bounce off, like where the light will hit each, because I took, my son was sitting and then my husband stood in the place of all 3 of the adults in that particular painting. And then again, the sort of the flashlight that he was holding, because I knew the character was going to be holding the candle, lit not only my son's face but also lit my husband's hands, you know, all over as he posed for those characters. When I go into Clip Studio again, I'm not able to do that from one general light source. So after I had them pose, I did a second sort of reference in Clip Studio Paint where I brought in 4 models. I kind of made the sizes because again, I'm looking at a reference of a man and a boy, right? A man and a little boy. And so what I did was I changed the body types for the mannequin. You know what? No, better yet, no, I won't do that. What I was going to say, let me show y'all. But what I will say is that what I was able to do was model the mannequin. So I had the grandmotherly figure in the background. I had the great grandmother, the grandmother, and then the great grandfather. I have it worked out. So I had the older woman, the woman to the left, and then the man to the right. And so what I did was I sort of made the body types match those characters that I had in my mind, and then I did my best to sort of match up where the light might hit based on the photo reference that I had taken, and then just kind of thinking about where I want to light the scene. And so that made it a lot easier. But what I have seen recently is a artist use Blender. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, Blender is a free, I say free, 3D sculpting program. You can also do animations in Blender. So you can actually sculpt characters, rig them up, and then actually have them move and perform. And movies have been made in Blender, but it is free, right? So Blender is a program that I've had and I tinker with off and on, and have been tinkering with this program off and on for years. I have been able to successfully create a donut and a mug of coffee in Blender, but that's sort of where it stopped. But the way that this particular artist used Blender is similar to the way that I use Clip Studio or the 3D models in Clip Studio Paint. So she basically takes 3D models, and I don't know if she's sculpting the 3D models or not, but she's taking these 3D models, she's taking different assets. So for instance, there was an image that she created with a woman who is sort of on the floor and she's looking up scared, and the camera angle is sort of above her. So we're looking at her being sort of subservient because she's below the camera, right? Behind her, she modeled or used assets for a bed, and it had like bears and things like that. And then she lit the scene in the colors that she wanted to use in her illustration. If I could do that in Clip Studio, listen, I'd be on it. But what it did was it's kind of piqued my curiosity to see, okay, how can I use Blender to sort of make my design process easier when it comes to creating compositions for my sketches and for my paintings and things like that, even for graphic design and photography, just kind of sketching out the scenes or sort of preparing the scenes in Blender so that I can translate that then into Clip Studio Paint or whatever, if I'm painting and drawing and all of that. So I was like, okay, cool, that would be something to learn, right? Again, it kind of focuses Blender for me because I've been tinkering again with it off and on, and for me it is a little bit it can be overwhelming because you can do so much in Blender, and I imagine it's like that when you open up a brand new program for the first time and you don't know what you're looking at. That to me is the way Blender reads, and because you can do so much with it, just like your Photoshop, just like Illustrator, I feel like they're the same way when you're opening them for the very first time, you never used them. It can be overwhelming, right? But if I kind of have something focused in mind, and this is very much how I learned how to do digital art as well. I had something I wanted to do, and rather than learn the whole of Photoshop at that time, I learned how to do what it was that I wanted to do. And as I progressed and started to make more artwork, I would learn new things, right? And before you knew it, I was really good with Photoshop. Photoshop is one of those programs that is so much you can do in it. You can edit photos. You can, of course, do graphic design and things like that. And when I was in school, I remember we had projects and things like that that did involve Photoshop, that did involve Illustrator as well. But there wasn't really a lot of instruction for how to use the programs. It was like, okay, here's what you got to do. Go do it. Right? Here's what we're looking to grade. Go recreate this project. And then you have to figure that out. I actually didn't get good at the programs themselves, especially Adobe Illustrator, until I got my first job in design. Got my first job. It forced me to learn all the shortcut keys and so on and so forth. With the digital painting, I got really good at Photoshop again from doing the digital art, right? So I was like, okay, if I can go to Blender and I have this idea that I want to do, if I can learn how to execute this one particular idea, at least I'll know how to do that, right? And that's all I need Blender for right now. So I can do that. And then when it comes time for me to do something else in Blender, for instance, I have been working on a series of book cover templates to sell on my website. Now, the idea for these templates is that they will be one of one. So when people generally hire me for their design services in publishing, they're getting completely custom work. Right? So they're hiring me my stories about this, and this. I have a look at their manuscript. We go from there and we design a package for them. We design all of their artwork. We go through the whole process, and it's very much bespoke, right? It's very much custom to their specifications. But not everyone can afford that service. So my thought is, okay, let me recreate that type of experience, but from a space where maybe they're not getting the custom one-on-one experience with me, but they're still getting a high level book cover and high level interiors, and let me pre-make it, and then they can just change the name or change the author and the titles and add their personal information to it, and then boom, you're on your way. Right? But my thought is, okay, cool, so when I get those done, I want to be able to show them in a way that they can kind of envision it, right? So my thought is, okay, well, maybe I'll learn how to sculpt a book that I can then put one of my book covers on, so that potential buyers can see what that book would look like in real time. I don't have to worry about downloading somebody else's mock-ups or anything like that. Create my own mock-ups. So that's what I'm thinking. So I was like, okay, cool. So that gives me two directions, two different things to learn on Blender. So again, I'm always learning. I've been doing this for so long. I don't want to get stuck in my ways, because I feel like that makes you stuck in your creativity, and it's not fun to be there, right? I don't want to get to a point where I'm so sort of surly and content with the way that I create that I'm not open to learning new modes of creativity. So that's where we are. Right? That's where we are, or that's where I am when it comes to creating art. So when I'm encouraging you guys to learn new skills, it's coming from a place where I'm learning my own set of new skills. You know what I mean? So maybe you guys can teach me some of the techniques and things that you have learned along your way, whether it is in digital art, whether it is in acrylics, whether it is in acrylic markers, child, because I still ain't picked up the markers. I have a painting in mind, and I mentioned this some months ago. Things have been sort of progressing so quickly that I have not been able to sort of go back to some of those other side missions. But I do still have an image in mind that I would like to try again with the acrylic markers. But if you got tips on that, I would love to know that. I love editing videos. If you got tips on how to edit videos and make them better, maybe adjust the sound, whatever you got, I'm happy to learn, and maybe we can become an exchange of information here. So I love to learn. I don't want to seem like I am mightier than thou. I know that I'm a student just like you guys, just like a lot of you guys. I'm also a professional in the field, but I enjoy the process of learning, and I do so much enjoy the process of creativity. I just gotta find a way to help inform people who may not, and maybe I ain't got to. I don't know. I was gonna say I gotta find a way to inform more people about what it is that we do, but maybe we do that collectively. Maybe that doesn't fall on the shoulders of one individual creative or two of us, right? So, all right, to this illustration that we've been working on since I've been running off at the mouth. So I have so far added some highlights, and now I'm doing these highlights based again on my 3D models, and I am looking at the person, this person who's kind of laid out in the background, right? Now my idea actually was to make this a woman. I'm not really sure if I will. I did try to put in like some dark indication of her hair, and I ain't like how they looked, right? So I was like, well, I guess she'll be bald too. So I am sort of working on that. I added the highlights to her legs. I also added it to the side under her arm. Right now it is probably a little bit lighter than it needs to be, because there's a slow transition between the shadow of her laying sort of, or him or her laying sort of next to the ground there, and then the light kind of rounds over her torso. So I have to kind of adjust that. But before I did, I know that part of the costuming for these characters is this sort of brown triangular patch. I wanted to put that in, right? Again, that ties this character, or at least these costumes, into other characters in this particular day, and that gives us some continuity. So that is something that I want to sort of achieve. I'm not necessarily, I guess it's not super necessary, but I do like the idea of having drawbacks to other cards as I make my way through the different illustrations for this deck, especially again since I've been working on it so long. I want to be able to sort of tie it in and have just that continuity. Now some of the cards that I've done, I've seen recently, and I'm like, I forgot all about that card. Goodness gracious. And so you see, I like to see other illustrations and things like that. So drawing back to some of those old things kind of ties it all in together, so that everything at some point makes sense. And so that when we get these cards, when we get the decks and things like that, they all feel like they've been made by the same artist, time withstanding. Right? So not even taking in consideration how much time it has taken to do them, I want to make sure that it just looks like they're all done by the same hand. All right, so what I'm going to do, I am kind of going back and forth now. I'm going to go back to the first character that I had, which is the main guy character here. It's part of his uniform, needs a little bit of adjustment, so I'm going to go and grab my plain old flat round brush. So draw sketchbook, don't worry about it. You only use 5 brushes. I'm with you. And I will say that limiting your brushes kind of pushes you to be very creative with that limit. It's like working with a limited palette, right? You limit your tools, you kind of push yourself into creativity, and then you can make the best out of those tools and become an expert in those tools. I remember when I first started with digital art, I was a brush like fiend. I was very obsessive about what brushes people were using, because the techniques that they were getting, I was thinking that it was attributed to your brushes, right? Most of it's really just attributed to your skills. So it is what you want to achieve, and then knowing how to achieve that. And a lot of that comes with trial and error. Some of that comes with making art that you may or may not be happy with, but just kind of trying out different things. But yeah, I don't go with a whole bunch of brushes. I have a lot of brushes, right? Don't get me wrong. I do have a lot of brushes, and there are instances when they are necessary, right? So when I'm doing foliage and things like that, I do have some foliage brushes, specifically from the artist Devin Kurtz. I think it's her name, Devin L. Kurtz. As a matter of fact, I think she has a project on Kickstarter. So if you guys want to support another artist, her art is amazing. It's very whimsical. This one in particular, her Kickstarter has to do with dragons, and so she paints these dragons as if they are part of like our everyday world, like birds. And so she'll have them resting on the tops of bookstores and like just kind of flying in the sky as people are driving. And so she has created a book centered around the dragons in those atmosphere. But her illustration style to me is so super magical, right? And she has these brushes that she put out. Right, so I bought did I buy them brushes? I think I did. Bought those brushes on her Gumroad. She has tutorials for how she uses them, but I use them for my foliage. Same with, I think Erin Blaze has water brushes that I use. Now, I do use them sparingly, and oftentimes not even for water. Sometimes I'll use them for texture and like creating leather and, working on animals and creating sort of that like a elephant hide and all that. Sometimes I just use water brushes. So, you'll find instances where specialty brushes are necessary, but for the most part, a good round brush, a rough brush, right? And for me, a smudge brush is generally all I need, and I'm able to create a myriad of techniques and things like that just from that. I think also that lends itself to your own artistic style. Oh, what am I doing, child? That lends itself to your style as well. So, you just gotta get good with those. And then when you feel like you need something extra, a little bit of razzle dazzle, right, then you can pick up a specialty brush. But I'm with you. One of these days, I'm gonna do this. I'm making this promise to myself. One of these days, I am going to attempt to create a full illustration, and maybe it'll be a portrait just to keep stuff easy for myself, but I want to create a full illustration in Procreate and see what I can do. Right, and I'll record it and show y'all the hiccups and all of that, just to kind of see me navigate through that process of using Procreate, because I do use it for sketching. Let me show you. I have, if I can open it up in time, but that's all I do in Procreate. Right, I also do a lot of line work in Procreate, so that is something that I have done in the past. So for instance, I'll show you this one. So this was a logo, usually, and it's usually logos too. So this was a logo design that I had done. I'm hoping that it comes through and there it is. This is a logo design that I had done some years ago for the Sacred Sister Circle, which is run by D. Ray Wise, right? And so she contacted me, and so these were all of the iterations that I had taken. I had an idea. She kind of gave me a baseline idea, so I did like a super quick thumbnail, right? I was sitting on the couch, and then I expanded on that thumbnail. I was like, okay, well, if I have figures, this is what I want those figures to look like. And then it just sort of escalated. This is the kind of work that I do in Procreate, because to me it is the easiest, right? So I could get a real good sketch in. Like, for instance, let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can see it. So this aspect, no, it's this one. This aspect here, I really like how loose that looks. So that is generally how I will sort of go through and design logos and things like that for people. Same with, I had a food truck logo that I did that was from Memphis with Love. They're a food truck, and so one of the things that I did was I also drew out the sketch for his logo as well. So that is how I use Procreate. I am one of these days, man, I'm going to sit down and actually like fully render out something in Procreate, just to kind of see how it looks, how I navigate it, because it is a somewhat new program for me outside of me normally drawing in Clip Studio or Photoshop or Corel Painter, child. Corel Painter or something else. But how I sort of navigate that and then go from there. So for instance, this is a sketch that I did based on, so the reference, I'll zoom in on it. So the reference is something that I had put together in Affinity Photo, right? So I put together the reference in Affinity Photo, and then I drew the reference out, and I did this in November, it said something like this. So that's kind of how I, again, that's how I navigate Procreate and sort of make it work for me. But again, I'm gonna get there. Y'all be patient with me. I'm gonna get there one of these days, and then I'll be able to say, okay, this is what I learned in Procreate. And child, it'll probably be the most elementary thing in the world, but that's what I'll do. So I ain't gonna over talk this too long. I know I've been talking I guess that's what you're here for, is to hear me talk. But I'm not gonna over talk it. So again, this is the 5 of Swords for the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now before we leave, because again, I know I met some new people, and I'm hoping that you guys are here to watch this live stream. If not, whether you're just new and found me out of wherever, I want to show you guys what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. Now this deck we are 44 cards deep. The card that I'm working on currently, the 5 of Swords, is the 45th card. So this is going to be a full 78 card deck. I remember when I first started this, I was like, yeah, it ain't gonna take me that long. I'm gonna do 80 cards. No, we definitely sticking to the 78. So it's gonna be a 78 card deck. The 79th illustration, because there will be a 79th illustration, is going to be the back design. I have not yet decided how I want the back to look. I don't know if that's something I want to outsource. I have also been contemplating outsourcing the packaging design, just so I don't have to deal with it. I do know the kind of box that I would like to have for this particular deck. I do not yet know what I want that to look like. I know purple, of course, is going to be heavily used because it's heavily used throughout this deck, representing the crown chakra, and so we'll get there at a certain point. This deck is going to come with a guidebook, so it'll be the 78 cards plus a guidebook, and then there's going to be an optional book to get with it where we'll do a super deep dive into each of the cards, all of the sort of nuance and a lot of the things that I was thinking as I am putting together these cards. The live streams help. Right? Live streams help. It used to be a time that I would actually keep active notes, and from time to time I still do. Will write things down as they come up. But more often than not, I'm explaining the cards, my thought processes in those cards as I am talking to you guys. So we're talking it out and working it out together in real time. So a lot of that will go into the extra book. That'll be the companion book that'll come with this particular project. And so I'm not yet sure if that is something I'm going to release at the same time, or if it is something that I will put out after I release the deck itself. I feel like it'll probably be wise to put it all out at the same time and let it be that. I have not yet decided if I'm going to do crowdfunding or if I'm just going to do going to purchase the inventory and then ship it out and do pre-orders. I'm not yet sure how I'm going to work that out. Initially, my first idea was to do the Kickstarter campaign, so we'll see. We'll kind of see how it goes. We'll see what the temperature is like at the time. we'll see where the printer is and what that process is like, because so much has changed in commerce in the last couple of years. So I'm not really sure how we'll get that done, but we'll work it out as we come along. So I have about 34 cards left to complete, including the one that we're working on now. So it's been a labor of love. I was talking yesterday, and I say this to you guys time and time again. Hey Montreal, it's good to see you. This is a project that I have not gotten tired of working on, right? So I have not gotten tired of working on it. Each card to me is a surprise, right? Even in all of the planning, even in all of the sort of research and things like that, I surprise myself, because a lot of it is something that I didn't necessarily see 2 or 3 years ago. A lot of times I didn't see right before I drew it out, right? So it's learning and sort of growing as I go. It has taught me so much about myself. It has certainly helped me develop in my confidence when it comes to creating art that I want to see. It has certainly also helped me to articulate and talk about the type of art that I create and why I create it and how I create it, right? And be much more, again, confident in the way that I express myself through these images. I am still happy again. I have not gotten tired of the project at all. So I've been working on this project since October of 2019. That was the first time I started. It took me some years to work up to that first card. And even with the first card, it was not a smooth process, because it started out as one thing and it turned out to be something else. But here is something, and I'm going to say this. I don't necessarily seek validation when it comes to my art, because I'm super happy with the way that it turns out. I'm creating for myself more than anything else, right? But what I will say is that it was really nice to be able to see how people reacted to the High Priestess, which was the very first card that I ever created. I had, of course, the High Priestess prints. I also had the High Priestess on journals at the convention that we did yesterday. And just to see how people lit up when they saw that card, and to see how people, again, responded to the images from this project, it did something to me. Right? It was like, okay. I had one lady, man, she was like, I think she misunderstood. I think she thought that I was saying that I was thinking about doing a tarot deck as opposed to like actively working on it. But she was like, you should. They already do real good. And I'm like, thank you, man. Like, I appreciate that. I was like, I surely hope so. Right? I surely hope so. So just having that in-person live reaction to the images is something that I have not experienced in a while. The first time I would say I have experienced that was probably in 2022 when we did a conference in Atlanta. And in that specific space, that was very much where this deck shined, right? Because it was a spiritual conference. It was where lots of lectures and people who would be interested. It was where my target audience was, in other words, right? So it was where my target audience was. And so I was able to sort of get real-time feedback from people who would potentially buy this project in real time. And so that gave me a little bit of a encouragement, I would say, a little bit of validation that maybe I was on the right path, regardless to the fact that I feel like I'm creating for myself. I also feel like I'm not an anomaly, right? So I don't think that, even if I feel like sometimes as artists, just as people in general, sometimes we feel like we're the only one that has a thought, or we're the only one that has an idea, when oftentimes if you have an idea, chances are somebody else has the same idea, right? And so I move through that space. So if I'm comfortable with the art, then I know that it'll find someone else who is also comfortable with it. If I'm happy with the art, it'll also find people who are happy with it. If I resonate with the art, I know that there are going to be people who resonate with it as well. So I try to just be as truthful to myself, as truthful to the process, and as truthful to you guys as I possibly can, because I know that there are going to be people who are going to connect to it on some level, right? Whether it is they see themselves in it, whether they can feel sort of my thoughts and my energy in each image, whatever that thing is, I know that there are people who are going to connect to it. So I just kind of keep going, right? And I won't lie and tell you that it's all been smooth sailing, because it has not. Again, this project has taught me so much about myself, and has made me sort of confront my fears around creating something so large, because this is the largest project I've ever undertaken. This is single-handedly the largest body of work for one specific project that I've ever done to this date, even with the 44 cards that I've completed. I have not done anything that was like 44 illustrations for one thing, right? I would say the second biggest would probably be a comic book that I worked on and helped complete in 2023. In that case, it was like scene after scene after scene, which challenged me to do things and think about how the body's moving, all of that. So that was a large body of work. But in terms of like a single like project, this is already the largest body of work for one thing that I've ever done. Now, again, yesterday at that comic book convention, I had art that spanned 9 years worth of work. From that is 9 years. Ain't it 14 to 2023, 9 years, right? And so in that, of course, there was a lot of art. There was a lot of art that I created just over the years. It wasn't done all at one time. It used to be a time when I would do the conventions. I would do maybe 3 a year, and I might do 3 or 4 new illustrations per convention, right? And then it kind of slowed down as I slowed down. So as I started to do less and less conventions, I would create less and less art for that so that I could focus on other things and focus on being very truthful in the way that I express myself through my art. But again, just having people connect to it in real time, that was really, really nice. It was really, really interesting. It was so heartwarming, and just seeing people really genuinely enjoy it. Whether it was the buttons, because I sell like little buttons, having people purchase the buttons in the journals and all of that. It was just a good time, right? So if you're an artist, if you are a creative, if you have a business idea, don't just rely on thinking that people know who you are, right? Because you know who you are and your family know who you are and all of that. You have to kind of get out there. You have to kind of get out and meet people and sort of watch and witness how they respond to your work. Find your audience in that, right? And then connect with people locally. That is something else I've been doing this week. Just connecting to local businesses, even just in the service capacity. So for instance, I have a commission that I just sent off. I finished it last week, mailed it out last week, but I had to get prints done. Now, typically I do all of my printing at home because I have a printer that's large enough to do that and it handles it very well. But I've had that printer for a long time, right? I've had that printer for a very long time. And it is sort of getting to the end of its life, I think. I don't know. We have to see. It's been acting up, and I've been working on it for like a solid month, but it's been acting up. So that meant that I had to get prints done through someone else. So I went to the company that handles the development of my film, because when I do photography, I do film photography, right? So I shoot film. So they usually handle my film development. So I went to them, called them up, and the lady walked me through it, and there was a hiccup in them receiving my files. But when I went there, it was very much, I don't know, it was one of the kindest experiences I've had. I tend to approach people from a space of kindness because I ain't got no reason not to. You know what I mean? I feel like you can kind of stir and control the energy if it kind of starts with you, right? So I'm always approaching people with the understanding that everybody's just doing their job. A lot of things are outside of people's control, and so we just kind of have to give and extend grace where we can. Now, when you have to go off, of course go off, but I feel like sometimes it's just not necessary. So I had called, gotten that straightened out, and so went up to pick up the prints. The lady did the prints ahead of time, and she surely did not have to, so shout out to Cynthia. She kicked butt on those. And so went to pick up the prints, but just having that entire interaction with a company that is local to the city that I live in, bringing business to them, because I'm generating business myself, because the owner of that painting wanted to have prints done. I'm not able to do it, right, because my printer is acting up. So I would much rather support a locally owned business as opposed to going to a larger chain if I can avoid it, right? So just having that experience, speaking to her about the possibility of scanning the paintings in and what their process is like, and sort of navigating a slightly new experience but building with people locally. I feel like that is where you're going to start to shine, and you'll start to build these relationships, and then people are going to look out for you. Right? Because she sure looked out for me, and all I was trying to do is I called to make sure that they had gotten the file transfer, and she hadn't. And so while I was on the phone with her, she kind of walked me through the process, and she ended up finding the file where I had sent it, and then she went on and knocked it out for me. And like, I was like, okay, cool, you gonna see me again. Right? Because that client then called me that evening, the same evening, and was like, what do we need to do to get some more prints? And I was like, okay, well, this is what it costs. You know. And so being able to build those businesses, and then again, to meeting people yesterday that are like running local groups, right, and encouraging me in my education and furthering my education, because again, I did not finish college. I dropped out. I went and looked at my transcript recently just out of curiosity. I had 27 credit hours left to get before I graduated. But at the time, to me, the job, because I got the job before I got the degree, so I got the job in the field that I was going to school with in, which was graphic design. So I got my job before I got my degree. To me, that was more important to me at that time. Now, will I go back and finish and complete them 27 hours? I might. You know what I mean? But speaking to someone who was encouraging me to think about art education and going that route and giving me names and, people to talk to and the call and all of that was just an encouraging time. So I do encourage you guys to look into local events, especially at your library. Do not underestimate the library. I know if Memphis got stuff going on at our library, your library got something going on at your library. I can guarantee it. So look at your library for local events and things like that. Start there. There are going to be lots of classes, and all of it's free. That's the kicker. All of this stuff is free. The convention yesterday was free, and they were giving away books, right? They gave away books and manga, and had all the events. And then again, I was able to meet different people. And so get out into your local environments, your local organizations, and things like that. And one thing will always lead to another, and you will continue to grow. And as you continue to grow, continue to support others in their growth, and I think we'll all be all right. All right. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining, whether you're watching this live or the replay, whether you were here for the whole time or you came in and slid back out. I sure appreciate you all for being here, and I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. Peace.